points, which is more an icebreaker for me than for you. Really nice to connect with so many people last night and this morning, and it just seems like we all sort of know people, so there's so many 7 degrees of separations. Really great to spend time with Ross from Cooloola Christian College over breakfast this morning, and we know the same area, we grew up at the Gap, which was great. Last night I learned how to effectively kill a wallaby from the guys from Renton College. Thank you for that lesson. That was absolutely fascinating, with different gauges of guns you need to use. And it was a really fascinating chat. Who didn't bring their kids with them? All of us. That's why I had a half-hour shower this morning on my own with no kids. No one opened the door. That was amazing. And I just want to let everyone know that the 30-year feud that I had been having in my head with Emmanuel College is now over, because every staffman from Emmanuel sorted me out last night just to make sure everything was cool. It's cool, we're at peace. I appreciate you finding me last night. So we'll move on. So I want to talk about the 7 C's of crisis PR management, I guess. And in terms of my background, and we've bits and pieces of it, and that sounds a lot better than it really is. When you voted the 35th best radio announcer in the country, and you tell your wife, and she goes, don't worry about it. So, you know, these things are at a lot of people's heads, and they don't mean a lot. But I spent 5 years working at B105. I read news on Channel 7. I spent 15 years in Christian radio. And for the last 7 years, I've been at 97.3 in Brisbane. And some of those are big media organisations. So I guess I come at this from the other side, the side that is there to not look after your best interests. So I kind of want to peel back the curtain a little bit and show you how it works. So what do you do when your school is on the front page of the paper for all the wrong reasons? And everyone's thinking, oh, where did this idea come from? Well, this presentation was actually my idea. When Lynn rang and asked me to speak last night, I offered her a 2-for-1 deal. And I asked about the guys from City Point, and I chatted to them before I gave this presentation. And I said, how are they all going? I said, there's probably a seminar in this on what to do when you're on the front page of the paper. And this is based off the City Point experience, but basically because I thought they were horribly treated by the media. And I see how it's done, I know why it was done. I saw the storm brewing. Sometimes you just can't avoid it. Schools have been in the headlines for many years, many different headlines. I just googled school issues and outcomes, US college admission scandal, teacher gets student pregnant or vice versa, students caught selling drugs. There's so many reasons why your school may be on the front page of the paper. And I've been part of that chaos before, that chaos that makes you all quiver to come to school, who's going to be talking about us. So as journalists and people that work in media, I guess we perceive it's our job to find a story, to sensationalise it, to find the clickbait, to get people wanting more, to perpetuate the story, follow up stories, to milk the narrative as long as we can. And I've been a part of that before, and it's not a fair fight. So you're going about your day, and it's never going to be a fair fight. We pay for stories, we'll get the story. I've exchanged money in my role for exclusives before, which has got great notoriety in the industry, but it's always at someone's expense. So there was a lady once whose daughter was missing in a London bombing attack, and I found out where she worked, and I convinced one of her colleagues to give me her phone number, and so I rang this lady in a real desperation time, and in exchange for air flights to get her over to see her daughter, she gave us an exclusive. That's how it works. That's what we do. So if someone's speaking out against your school, they may have been paid to speak out. So it's not going to be a fair fight, it never will be. Journalists are not your friend, and nothing is ever off the record. So it doesn't matter what you say, it's never off the record, I just want you to know. So what do you do when you find yourself in the middle of a media school? 7 points, okay? We remain very calm. Most media schools only last a day or two. It's called a media cycle for a reason, and it moves pretty fast most of the time. Not in the City Point case. It was a really slow news week. There was nothing else in the news that week to report on, and the City Point headline really was a perfect storm for a number of reasons. No other news to report on, personal agendas by ex-students, journalists' agendas. The amount of stories I've seen in the newspaper or on the radio that aren't really a story, but because we tell them, it's a story. And that comes from our own bias and our own agenda And if journos say, it's been reported that, by who, your neighbour? Just because we say it doesn't mean it's a massive story, but it does appear to be a big story. So let me run you through a series of headlines that flash on our screens over a 10-day period, just to show you how quickly major stories can be bumped off the front page, as opposed to the City Point story where there was no other news to report on. So in a 10-day period earlier this year, here are the headlines. Russia invades the Ukraine, the world's on the brink of World War III. And everyone was so fearful, it's a massive story. The very next day, Queensland flooded, and the Ukraine was gone. Didn't hear anything about it, gone. Queensland's flooding led the news. 2 days later, Shane Warne dies. What floods? Who cares? Our greatest sporting hero has passed away. 3 days later, the drummer for the Foo Fighters had died. What? Taylor Hawkins. I love that band. One of the biggest bands on the planet. And before we had time to unpack that, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. All in a 10-day period. Every one of those stories we hung around for a month. That's how quick the news cycle works. So you can stay calm, and it may go away, or it might not. So then what do? You communicate. If you say nothing, and you can, that's actually not a terrible strategy. As I said, we're used to breaking the same day as a world event, no one will notice. But if you say nothing, the papers and the radio will say things on your behalf. And they'll find people to speak on your behalf and put words that weren't meant to be in your mouth and misrepresent you. So, what I want to do is show out some words or phrases and things that I think are very generic enough to keep the media at bay over the next few minutes. Feel free to use any of these anytime. So a press release is better than nothing at all. A well-worded reply could help put out the fire in a matter of minutes. Having friends or contacts in the media is very helpful. Rely on those friendships to hose down a story, to bury a story, to lessen the blow, whatever it takes. And you need to make those friends now. You're not going to make them in the middle of the storm. You've had to already have made them. So do you have any past students that work in the media? Get in contact with them, reconnect with them, have them on your books. Just have some sort of journalists that have some sort of industry pull around. Honesty is often the best policy, being on the front foot. We got this one wrong. We clearly didn't read the room as best we could on this one. We'll endeavour to rectify the issue ASAP. I always like the line of running a full investigation. We'll be running a full investigation on how this happened, and we'll make any necessary changes required. And we will, probably not, but it buys you time to move on. The next C is compassion. So what do you say? What words need to come out of your mouth? Well, I always like to start with compassion. Sometimes your tone can speak louder than the words you actually use. So stories only break if there's an issue or a problem, and it usually involves someone. So someone here is hurting somewhere, which is why it's a story. So words like, we are devastated that this happened. We're feeling for the victims in this story right now. We know this is a tough time. Our thoughts are with the innocent parties. Show compassion, don't be defensive, and I'm always big on open hand gestures, hey, I'm not the enemy here, I'm trying to be as open as I can and as honest as I can. So it's easy for us, I guess, as Christians, to be honest in our compassion. One of my favourites is confidentiality. As a school, confidentiality is your biggest asset. Kids are involved. You can always hide behind confidentiality. It's actually your business. It's actually no one else's business. I hate the line, I'm a journalist, it's my job. Get a real job. Like, you've got real jobs. I see journalism as a real job, but it's not your business to dig into my business. People just want a sticky beat. They don't deserve to know what goes on. So it's your own private business, but you can hide behind confidentiality. We would love to comment at this time, we just can't. We feel for all those involved, but due to the age of the kids in this story, we're not allowed to comment on this story. This matter has been taken very seriously by the school, but we must provide confidentiality for the safety of all those involved. There are legitimate reasons for you not to talk. You've got kids involved, you don't have to say a thing. We don't want kids on the front page of the paper. So use confidentiality as one of your weapons. Concern's a big one for me as well. And I feel like I'm racing through this, so at any point you want to stop and ask questions, we might do questions at the end. I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have. Be concerned but never surprised by any allegations or any story that breaks, or any events or any of the circumstances that lead you to be there. Yep, we've got concerns that people disagree with our policies, but we're a Bible-based school until the Bible changes. We're bound by its principles. This has been a deep concern to us for a long time, and that's why it will be fully investigated. We'll do a full review of the current policies and procedures immediately. You see, I'm saying a lot without really saying much at all. Our concerns are with the parents and students who we wholeheartedly support this stance and the attacks on them. And I always think about shifting the concern. So we're concerned with the hearts and minds of the kids at our school, and as a result of this event, and the damage and the unwanted attention it's now placing on the kids. So you are concerned, but don't be afraid to show your concern. The next one's my favourite. I struggled to find a C word for it, and I looked at every thesaurus I found, but I'm going to use the word consultant. What I mean is someone who's cool under pressure. So, as a school or a ministry, it doesn't just have to be schools. I mean, as Christian organisations, you're under more attack than most. You need to find someone that can be your spokesperson. And sometimes I think people that not necessarily work for the school, but maybe the principal might not be the right person for the job. Because you're too close to the situation, and the situation can become quite damaging quite quickly. I think it's damaging to put the head of the school on the firing line, although it might be their role, but you have a whole community to protect as well. So you need to find someone that can speak, that can take the heat. For example, a deputy principal. It's not a bad idea. Okay, deputies I love a former principal. A former principal is a great idea. A concerned parent with a really thick skin that maybe has a good presence in the community, a parent that's been involved in committees in the school, a strong business leader in your community, a lawyer involved with the school, a PR firm. Find someone else that can be out the front, that can be cool under pressure, and just take the main heat away from your school. Someone that can throw a sentence together, someone that can defend your school, someone like a Wendy Francis from the Australian Christian Lobby who's always willing to speak on behalf of Christian organisations. So that's what they do. They put their head up on the chopping block until this goes away. And the last point that I wanted to bring up obviously is Christ in all this. Sometimes you have to take the hit. We did the wrong thing. It doesn't look good. We need to pray through this. And this may involve, as I said, I don't know the details of the City Point story. I don't know the details. All I know is what I saw in the project. But it may involve finding out why we're in the news in the first place. What have we done wrong? Have we done something wrong? Can we do it better? What does God want us to do here? So clearly, Christ should probably be the first one. Remain calm, or pray and then remain calm. But certainly I'll be praying. It's probably my most important point. When you're in the middle of all this, and this is happening to you in your school, it might seem like your world's collapsing around you. No one else cares. If I'm being really blunt, when you're on the headlines, people barely even read it. They're worried about getting their kids to school. I mean, my dog ate 2 of my kids' hats last week. I was more interested in getting to the uniform shop by 8 o'clock for that 5-minute window that was open to buy 2 new hats. I don't care what was in the news that day. People aren't going to get the full story. They're going to get a bit of a story, and in 6 months' time I'll say, oh yeah, weren't you at school that was in the news? Yeah. Okay, what's happening now? Like, they're not as invested in it as you are. It's never as bad as it seems. People have got their own problems. And I wanted to encourage you in that, because when you're in the middle of it, it will be horrible. But there's other stuff going on. And we're showing all of it. There's people caring about other stuff. So yes, you're in the spotlight for a very short time. It's a really sharp and bright flame, and then it goes away and we're back to normal. So don't think that people are harbouring on it, or thinking about it, or worrying about what you did 6 months ago. They're moving on with their lives. Yes, you've been in the news. Most people will forget it. if you are stuck and something goes wrong, there are people that are happy to help. There are local boutique PR firms. As I said, find journalists that are friends. I'm happy for you to call Mr. Kuss and get my number. Like, whatever you need to talk through a situation, you have my number. So does ACS, apparently. I don't know who gave it to him, but I wasn't very impressed. Yeah, look, just call someone that you know. Don't really have to do it on your own. I mean, there are always a wealth of knowledge and information, parents from the school, especially schools like ours, well-educated parents that might be able to step in and help. You don't have to do it on your own. People say, you know, hunker down and close the doors. Yeah, but you can sit on the front foot and hopefully, depending on the situation, it'll lessen the blow and go away quickly. I hope that helps in some way. That gives you something to say. And I'm happy to share those notes on, there's so many dot point lines there that really would just keep journalists away and they'll move on to something else. It's like when you break into a house and you take some dog food to feed a dog. The dog's interested in something else where you break into the house. So you're just trying to keep them away. You're breaking into the house. I know too much. Is there any questions? I'm happy for there to be some, I'm happy for there to be none. Does that help in any way? I hope so. Any questions? Going once, going twice. Thank you very much for having me. I will be having another half-hour show before I leave.